Hello there. My name is Carrie Varela. I'm joined today with Bronwen and Logan, and we are the Reiki Women Podcast, short of one of our other members, Michaela Daystar, who is running late today, so she might be on our podcast today or might not. We're not sure yet, but either way, we wanted to jump in and talk about an important topic this week. And so the topic is around what exactly is Reiki? And in some senses, the definition of Reiki is very simple. It's very easy to understand. Sometimes I liken Reiki to learning poker. Anyone can learn how to play poker, but it takes a lifetime to really deeply understand the deeper layers of meaning that we can associate with the word and concepts of Reiki. And so that's our topic of discussion today on Reiki Women Podcasts. Bronwen, would you like to chat, since you're this wealth of knowledge about Reiki, you know so much about Reiki, but could you boil it down to the basics again for us today? What is Reiki?
Yeah, right. I mean, look, I could talk for a long time about this, but I shall try not to, and I shall try to make it a conversation rather than me just going blah, 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 blah. So, but to start off with, I guess what we just really need to be 100% sure about is what we're talking about. So we have Reiki, yeah, which is a Japanese word. And it's also Japanese kanji. So kanji is the pictographic way of drawing a word in Japan using kanji. So we can look at the kanji and see what that means. We can take the English definition, and there's lots of different ones of that, because like any word, it can have lots of different meanings. Yep. Like, in English, we have words. I mean, if you use the word, of course, I can't think of a word right now. What's a word that's got lots, some of our words have multiple meanings, and it's the same with Reiki. It could be translated, especially as it's two kanji. So we're putting two things together, and they can be translated in numerous ways. And then we have something entirely different to all of that, and that is the system of Reiki. So over 20 years ago, Franz and myself sat down and went, what is the system of Reiki? Because it was very, very confusing. And, we were writing some books, and, I needed, I know for myself at least, to be clear about what the hell I'm writing, and so really defining what the system is and how that's different to Reiki. Yeah. So a lot of people, and they still do it today, which is fine. But, I've sort of trained myself not to talk about Reiki as a like, not if I use the word Reiki, I'm talking about energy work, energy, if you like, not energy work, energy. And if I'm talking about the system of Reiki, I actually say the system of Reiki. So there is definite clarity between these two things. So that's where I guess I would start.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really, well, it's like you were saying, that like one word can have a lot of meanings. And I think from my Western mind, there's this tendency to want to lead towards something that's really concrete and and simple. But I think Reiki is simple, but it's not necessarily concrete. And so as you were talking about one word, what it could mean, think about Native peoples up in Alaska. They have like 8 different words for the word snow.
Yeah.
Or the Greek have, I don't know how many, but like 6 different words for love. So just important, I think, to make these distinctions, like you mentioned, to distinguish what is Reiki as opposed to how we practice Reiki and how we show up to support other people, to learn the language of Reiki, learn the language that it points to, and ultimately our soul. And I think of Reiki, when I first found Reiki, a lot of people, or the way it was translated is universal life energy, or universal spiritually guided life energy. And I really, I do value that definition.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't speak to the many nuances that you can put into the words Ray and it put into the words key. And like you were saying, Bronwen, I think it's really helpful to really look more deeply at the kanji of Reiki to help us illuminate, some of those deeper nuances and those different ways that we can describe what might be many interpretations using one word.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you go back to the origin of it rather than all our own personal subjective. I mean, it will always be subjective to some degree, but it becomes more and more subjective as we go along, as we move away from the kanji, for example. Yeah. And I know when I was talking to this Japanese teacher, and he said to me, I said, what does it mean? What is Rei, for example? And he said, Rei means big. Now, this is a number of years ago, and in my head, I'm thinking big, yeah, big. Maybe maybe it's his limited English. It's such a simple word, is what I was thinking at the time, right? And then I thought about it, and actually, it's not a bad way of seeing it. I mean, it's a totally different way of seeing it, but it's just one of the many ways that you could see it, and it's sort of a helpful way for us to see it within this practice. Because if we think, if ki is energy, let's say, then, and if Rei is big, so big energy, yeah, I mean, that's not a bad way of looking at it, because in reality, what we are talking about, and when we look at the kanji is telling us the origins of the universe and how we fit into that and how it fits into us. So it sort of goes both ways. And then it also talks about this force that we have inside of us, that is inside of us but also outside of us, the energy's part of it. Yeah. So we've got Reiki, and it is something which is in many ways all encompassing when we're looking at this story of the beginning of the universe. And it is everything. So it's big. It's really, really, really big. Yeah. And yet at the same time, it also is that bigness is it's us. So it's an interesting one, and it's very, very difficult to define, which is why I was saying that really helping people to understand that, I think there has been a lot of confusion with people going, oh yeah, no, I do Reiki, and they've never done a Reiki class. Right. And that's like saying, oh yeah, I do Tai Chi, but never having done a Tai Chi class. And you can't, even though, once again, Tai Chi is about, the word is about working with energy. There are actual practices and elements to it. So in defining those elements, like we have, so, breaking it up into, Franz and I broke it up into 5 elements to help us understand, yeah, right, what the hell we were doing, so you've got your radio initiation, you've got your symbols and your mantras, you've got your meditations and techniques, you've got the precepts, of course, and then there's hands-on healing. And it also helps people to understand then, where these practices fit together, and what they how they might interrelate with each other, which of these might be more important than others. For example, a lot of people put a lot of importance on hands-on healing, initially. I know that's changed as well, and that people are understanding that there's more to the system of Reiki than hands-on healing, but it's an easily accessible aspect of it, and it is something which we naturally do. So I can understand why people might think, oh yeah, I do Reiki, but they haven't actually worked with all those different elements, so they haven't really They don't work with the system of Reiki. They may work with Reiki and, so this big energy, but we all do. That's just life.
Yeah, and I think that that's where it gets a little confusing, right? Because there's this definition, this kind of line where I've seen that a lot also as a Reiki teacher, people saying, I don't really need to do a Reiki training, or I just naturally have Reiki. But I think of that as, and it is true, right? We all are,
Yeah.
if we look to the definition and awareness of Reiki, we are all universal energy. So in some senses that is true, but it's like, having a book that you've never read and then trying to give that book or the knowledge of that book to somebody else. There's just like this shallowness to it, right? So if you really felt drawn towards Reiki or towards energy work, I always encourage people, don't just sit there on the surface of that. Like, dive in, go in and learn this, because you might feel, there's a reason why you're being drawn to it.
Yeah.
And it's important to explore that. And it's also really, I think, a form of integrity, it's just to like actually really study something, seek to understand it before you give it to others. And, I think that there's a pretty low bar to learn Reiki. It's really not very expensive to learn. And we try to keep it as affordable as possible, even to some Reiki practitioners' detriment, not really charging enough for the time, the energy it takes to really develop not only a Reiki practice, but also a practice where you expand to teach others. And so, yeah, it always kind of bothers me when people are like, I want to learn Reiki, but it's too expensive, but I want to, basically sell Reiki for, for a cost, and they're just not willing to invest the time and money that it really takes, I think, to learn the language of Reiki well, to apply it in our lives and, embody the practice, and then from that place of embodiment, share it with others.
Yeah, I
So
think
I
that
always tell
the
people,
lack of understanding. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even if you know Chokuray, or, then there's another draw, because I think some lineages of Reiki, they speak about, oh, you can't have Reiki unless you get an attunement to it. And I don't think that that's true either. So
Well, what
it's,
are they talking about? The system of Reiki, or are they talking about Reiki? You see, this is why when we speak, we need to be very clear about what we're talking about.
mm-hmm.
So yes, the system of Reiki has an attunement in it. That is a part of the system. Yeah. But
Yes.
Reiki, we are Reiki. Yeah.
Yes. So just opening ourselves up to what is already true, but it's like opening up the pages of a book, where it's like, I'm going to actually read this book and learn the knowledge that it contains.
Yeah.
Before I share it with others. And well, anyways, and I think there's also some interesting distinctions. I think there's confusions also within the idea of what is Rei and what is Ki. What's the difference between those two? And I've definitely like grappled with that, because Rei is something big, something universal, something spiritual. And then Ki being our mind, our body, our life force, our aliveness. How did those two terms kind of come together and weave together authentically? It's kind of interesting. And I was listening to this woman named Marika Chalmers, and she goes by her business name, I think is called the Energetic Ecologist. And she talks a lot about how, because she comes from, or she has some ancestry back to Japan, and she talks a lot about how in the West, we tend to be a little bit kind of confused about the distinction between Rei and Ki, and that a lot of the exercises that we might be building or using within our Reiki trainings are actually just cultivating Chi, and they're not necessarily cultivating Rei. And so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that, Bronwen?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure I could think of something, but look, if I look at Ray, yeah, and I look at it, I mean, it is just it's a story. Ray is this story, and it's telling us how the universe began, how we fit into that, and what we need to do within that. So it has a whole story. It says that we need to practice, and if we practice, then the blessings of our practice will come to us, and those blessings are the blessings of the universe. And it's really that, meaning that we will be in that natural flow of the universe. If we look at ki, it is I mean, there's lots of, I'm just trying to think. Someone told me something interesting about ki, and I can't remember, but it may come back. But it is about that cooking of ourselves. So the practice that we have within ourselves, that is allowing that energy to come from us. It is a natural thing, ki, and yet both Ray and Ki are telling us that we need to be active and we need to do something. Yeah. So it's not just about sitting there and just letting life pass by us. It's about being an active part of that. And because in the Ray, we have the shamans doing their dance. That's what brings the blessings. We are the shamans. And in the Ki, we have the rice cooking. And when the rice is cooking, the steam is coming off it. And the steam is the energy that comes from us when we are cooking. So when we are doing our practice, it's almost like, I think I often do see it, that the Ki is almost like it's like if we had Ray and we had a picture of Ray in front of us, and then from Ray we had an arrow coming out with a circle, and then we had the Ki inside of that. And what I'm saying is, it's like, when you see an instruction manual and they're showing you the detailed part of something, and it's like Ki is like the detailed part. It's like that little part within the Ray that is what's actually happening. That when we're working with the hara, that rice, bowl of the hara, when we're practicing that, it's cooking and the energy is flowing and moving, and so that's sort of happening within the Ray. Yeah. So Ray is the big picture. Once again, big picture, and Ki is like this defined part of that, which is showing us, oh, this is actually inside there, this is what's going on, and that's us, and how we are, how the energy is flowing from us, and from the work that we do.
I think that's fascinating. And I think another way that I've thought of it or experienced it, I could say, is that, in some senses, okay, so there's this idea within Reiki is that it helps us tap into our life purpose, and catches that spark of like, this is something that I should do. This is something that and so like whether we're working with trying to find the right, career path, whether we're try to find the right partner. But I think of Ray as that inner voice that gives us permission, or gives us this feeling, this sense that like, this is for me, this is something I should be doing. And then the Ki is this kind of freedom that unlocks itself out of stagnation, or out of confusion, that we begin to say, I can take these positive steps forward in life. And I see so many people, I feel like, are just lost because they don't give themselves enough permission. They don't give themselves permission to take a vacation, give themselves a permission to go after their dreams. And that's this like lacking, or this lack of connection to a feeling of purpose, and we're seeking purpose outside of themselves, but not translating back into a feeling of like this inner guidance of purpose in their life, where it doesn't really they don't need permission from anybody else to do what they want to do, that they feel that inner muscle flex, that life choice, that decision is the right thing for them. And then by giving themselves that permission, I feel like you begin to create this sense like, I can follow guidance, my own inner compass in life. And that's one of the things Reiki's really allowed me to do.
What are the nuts?
Yeah, I think, I get what you're saying. And I think it actually comes into this idea of us being, if we look at Ray, it's saying that we are an active part of the universe. Yeah. And that the universe is active. Yep. And it's sort of like when we talk about remembering, that memory inside of us of who we are, and that it is bigger than us, and that we possibly just need to let go into that flow of that universe rather than us. Hey, what have you got there?
Oh, wow. That's a really cool spider.
A spider. Ooh. Yeah, so rather so us being actually in the flow of everything, and that having that that it's like the energy just is flowing freely, that we don't need to actually get our minds in the way, and our minds can so easily be that sort of way thing. Hello, Sky. And it can make us but the mind we can think that the mind is the most important part of us, and what we think about things and how we think about things, and that's all very important, but we've got to find that balance, don't we? And so it's letting go of that and really having an awareness, but not just a mental awareness, an energetic awareness, and allowing ourselves to be in that lovely natural flow of the universe, which provides us with our purpose. Rather than our heads going, what is my purpose? Oh, it must be this, it must be that, it must be this. And, we can just sit here totally. And it's like it's like the rest of me doesn't exist, and energy doesn't exist. And all I am is just a head. And yet I'm so much more than that.
Absolutely. So it's not just a mental power, it's like something that's deeper that can really connect to energetically, soulfully. But I agree with you. Sometimes we can get really stuck in our head around trying to answer these questions for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sky actually has done a picture for us, which, well, not for us, but she did a picture today. Which one's that one, Sky? I want to see the hand one. Can we see the hand one?
See the hand one?
This is a hand.
Sure.
All right, bring it over. There we go. Now there, one of the elements of the system of Reiki. Excellent, Sky. Thank you for that. And one of the ways that we work. Oh, and there's something else. There's also a picture of a big toe there, which I thought was rather fascinating. And a spider.
Well, thanks for rolling with me today. I'm home with the kids, and sometimes we can multitask as moms, sometimes we can't.
Exactly. Hey, maybe next time it'd be really lovely to talk about, just following on from this conversation, so we could have a chat about what it, I think that thing of, how other energy modalities, how does Reiki fit into that? Because I think that's really interesting for people to, it can be really confusing, and, maybe we could shed some light, or at least have a discussion about, how the system of Reiki does fit into the world of other energetic modalities. And are they the same? Is energy the same? All those sorts of discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look forward to having that discussion too. And I hope that this episode was a little bit informative, helping us put a little more structure into what is one definition of Ray, mysterious. So putting some more words, some more insight into the depth. And I think it's really important, as if you can call yourself a Reiki practitioner, is to come back to these baseline definitions again and again and again, and looking at them deeply, seeking to understand with a beginner's eye. But also, as we grow with Reiki, is to come back to these basic definitions and see how, whether or not we've like molded that, changed it, but kind of coming back to the basics over and over again. That to me is like the constant process of learning and growing within Reiki, and kind of checking back all the way down to my roots, making sure I'm still grounded in this, the same thing that was so profound for me many years ago. So thanks for talking so much with me about this, Bronwen. I think you have a wealth of knowledge and so much to share with us. So thanks so much for sharing. And thanks so much to all of you for joining us today. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about Reiki, the definition of Reiki. And have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Bye.